Welcome to the next episode of The Letter. I believe this is number 11, and we're about to start the next chapter. Well, it's going to be Ashton's chapter, so let's get right into it, shall we? I can't believe this is the 11th fucking episode that I've done of this series. Oh my god, we're getting there. Oh, right, I remember now. I never finished Rebecca's chapter, because it was getting really long. Okay, so she's about to go on a lunch with Luke. Miss this newfound friendship? Dare I call it that? Ashton's message lays forgotten and abandoned in my pocket. Of all the places nearest to the school, Kylie picks this one, and waiting for food to be served is as awkward as I've imagined it would be. Not the bad sort, though. The pleasant kind. Surprisingly, Luke's an okay bloke when he tries. When he tries. So long as you're willing to look past the tactless remarks, or when we're not exchanging acerbic quips. It's clear he's making an effort for this to be as fun as possible for the 6-year-old by being chattier, even going as far as to laugh when Kylie's story calls for it. It's an interesting thing to hear from the man. More than once, I catch his frequent cheesed-off expression easing whenever he looks at the girl.
And your friend? Did you make up with her?
Yep! She said she just saw something she didn't like. She didn't accept the jellies, though. She told me to give it to you instead. She knows you like the red ones, too.
It's so cute.
Very well. Hand it to me later. I'll bring some of them home. And I think your Tia would love to have some.
What a terrible liar. He says he dislikes the idea of having children of his own, but it's easy to see some part of him genuinely wants them. What's stopping him? Once Kylie wanders to nearby bookshelves, after having lost interest in the conversation, however, we both revert back to silence. On our own, we have little to talk about, aside from a few questions about the other here and there. At one point, it does veer on local politics and history. He's surprisingly versed with it, that he can hold a decent conversation without throwing a jibe. Nothing too personal is ever mentioned so far, though. It's too early for those, and besides, I don't like him enough to speak of every minute detail of my life. Better keep it strictly between the silence and the casual repartee. This whole thing already looks and feels wrong on so many levels. I'm quite sure he feels the same. So when another bout of silence hits us and becomes too much, I've taken to finding something else to occupy myself. Toying with my mobile, turning it from hand to hand while we wait for our respective meals. But it'll be a complete lie if I say I'm not waiting for some intervention. Something to pull me away from this place. Someone. Ashton's probably at Salem Well by this time, working on whatever business he has there. Maybe if I make up an excuse and leave now, I can still catch him.
Cut that out. It's distracting.
My hand still, holding the gadget awkwardly between us, arrested mid-pass by his bored tone. He's been quiet for a long minute now, after complaining about how appalling the tea they're serving here is. Before that, he's whined about how uncomfortable his chair is, and tasteless the decorations they have here. I mean, to be fair, they have, weird bicycles on the wall, which I don't really like, so whatever. Previous to that, he has griped about how dull the place is, compared to the one he frequents on the upper-class side of the city. Well, I'm sorry for being a bunch of peasants, your majesty. Figures he'll lose patience soon, having already grumbled about almost everything his eyes can reach. It's just unfortunate he's turned to me now.
Why don't you just look somewhere else?
I can't. If I turn elsewhere, I might end up looking at the bobfuck right behind us.
Bobfoot. Do I even want to ask?
I don't want to hear it. If it's coming out of his mouth, it can only be either rude or offensive. Regardless, he continues.
Everything looks good. But have you seen the face? True horror.
His face turned purple.
What is wrong with you? You know, I frown about this in practice, but that mouth needs to be washed out with a particularly potent soap. Preferably by your own mum.
A shame she isn't here,
For whatever reason, that puts an end to that talk right away. He returns to watching his godchild, who's found a particularly interesting picture book, is now poring over it, while I turn back to my mobile. Still no message. Would it kill him to at least send a message? Check if I were home? Meanwhile, Luke's silence lasts all but 10 seconds.
What is it with the damn mobile? Are you on a curfew?
He's got the immature act down pat, I'll give him that. Seriously, how old is this guy? Has he somehow been deprived of affection during childhood?
And what is it to you? I don't think it's any of your business what I do with it.
It is my business, all right? 1, I'm the one paying here. 2, I'm being forced to eat dinner in a place this stuffed and noisy. Lastly, it's been 10 minutes, the food isn't here, and I'm hungry.
It's only been 10 minutes, you big baby.
What you're doing with the mobile is annoying and distracting. when the least you can do is keep things entertaining while I suffer.
That's your problem? Shouldn't you be more worried about how this entire affair looks to other people?
Oh, I didn't realize this was one. You move fast, Daisy. You could have informed me first, you know. Had I known, I would have taken you someplace nicer. Certainly the kind with better food and plenty of good wine.
Why did I ever think this was a good idea? Did it ever occur to you how inappropriate this might look to everyone?
Why should I care? It's only inappropriate if you make it out to be.
Also, you were the one who agreed to go to this whole meal in the first place, so...
Relax. I won't do anything to make your boyfriend angry. He doesn't even need to know we dined out. It'll be our dirty little secret.
He's not my boyfriend!
The word comes out with more force than I've intended. By the time I realize my slip-up, his lips are already spread in a sneer. He slowly crawls up in my face.
Oh, so there is someone. You're so easy to read.
Oh, Jesus. Briefly, his eyes search my face. I have no idea what he sees, nor do I care to know, but in the next second he barks out a laugh, displaying his amusement without reserve to everyone within earshot. In that moment, I know I've flipped a switch in him somewhere, and I've lost my chance to deny his assumptions. Do I even want to? Isn't that the reason why I've been so focused on my mobile, waiting for another message from him? For a reason to dump this awkward meeting to go after him?
Look how mottled you are, and how the nickname makes more sense. Shy Miss Pink and her cute little crush. The color suits you, by the way. It matches the hair.
It's not a crush!
Classic denial. But in reality, you want him to be yours, and your every move is made to make him notice you. In fact, you don't want him to see you with another man in a non-professional capacity, because he might misinterpret it.
The same thing goes for you, doesn't it? Bloody, yours is even worse. What about your wife? Aren't you concerned she might misinterpret this?
Daisy, just because we tied the knot doesn't mean we have to be joined at the hip at every single opportunity.
Don't be ridiculous. Why else would you marry her if you don't want to be with her for the rest of your lives?
Because, Daisy, she also has other things she can do with her life and friends to spend time with. Granted, I don't like some of them, and I have a few of my own she utterly dislikes. But wifey doesn't have to know my every move. Nor do I hers. Do you know how boring that would be? To be with the same person for all hours of the day. Losing sleep over the mere fact they're not with you. Or putting everything you have aside to please them. To have your whole world revolve around one person.
And he's got a point.
Aren't you just mistaking that for something else? Unlike you, there are other people here who don't share the same jaded outlook you have. Don't lump everyone together just because it didn't work out for you.
And you, my dear, are unexpectedly naive.
What's so naive about it? If you love each other, wouldn't you want to always see them, be with them, to have them focus solely on you?
Yeah, that's I don't know, that's a little weird, in my opinion.
Maybe you haven't been loved enough.
Oh, it's that kind of thing for you, isn't it? The love is eternal, love is a strong emotion shite. A starry-eyed girl pining for her dashing Prince Charming? What's next? Romantic confessions of love? A grand wedding on the beach? Dozens of spawns running around in some picturesque home in the suburbs? How quaint. Are you also expecting it's going to be sunshine and rainbows after? A happily ever after? Please.
What? I never once said... and is all of that such a bad thing to hope for?
Woman, I've been married for 7 years, and I'm telling you, it's far from what you have in your pretty red head. Tell me, how long has this song and dance been going for you and your man? Maybe I am mistaken.
Averting my eyes from him is all I managed to do. What does this mere 7 years have compared to the 17 I've had with Ash? It's laughable he thinks those two things are even comparable. Ash and I may have never moved past the boundaries of friendship, like what I'm hoping for years, but what we have isn't something anyone can scoff at. I've always been by his side, endured everything with him. I know him better than anyone. No matter what this man, this complete stranger, says, I know there will always be a place for me beside him. And yet...
Come on, Daisy, that shouldn't be too hard. 3, 5, 8, 10, 20...
His words easily seep into my heart like sharp daggers, gradually picking apart everything I've ever been sure of. Despite myself, the doubts resurface and my defenses crumble right in front of my eyes. It's no wonder he sees through me, and as expected he ridicules it. Laughs. Restrained, low and rumbling, a sharp sound striking the air around us amidst the murmur of people and the soft notes of the music playing over our heads. His shoulders shake, and when his mirth becomes too much even for him, he reaches up a hand and passes it over his face as if to hold his glee close to him.
Lordy bullocks, this is just brilliant. Oh, Mother, why do I always keep running into these things? This day couldn't get any better. I think I'm gonna need a stiff drink after this.
He dissolves into another peal of laughter, but when it subsides, what he has for me are more words. Scathing, each of them. The urge to run from here has never been this strong.
Is everything you said how you plan to act, if that man of yours ever ends up with you? Cling to him? Put him on a bloody pedestal? Let him become the center of your universe? Although with how long this seems to be going on, I think you've already done so. Marriage will just be icing on the top. Like some sort of reward for you, isn't it? For being a good, patient, loyal little girl all this time. Never looking at another man.
Ugh, the way he says it is so creepy.
He must have been having a grand time with someone pining over him this long. I'm a little envious, to be honest. Maybe also a little surprised he hasn't suffocated from all your attention yet.
Laugh all about it if you want. It's not like you'll ever understand.
Luke falls silent. The ridicule in him is gone in an instant, and his eyes meet mine, sharp and imposing. A challenge, but I hold it against him with the same intensity. Because if there's something I won't let his opinion trample on, it's this. What does he know? However, he's the first one who looks away, focusing his eyes back to where Kylie is. For a moment, I believe I've won. Until he draws in a breath and turns back to me. The words he drops next, though hushed, hang heavily in the distance between us.
You're right. I won't. But I do know not to mistake love for obsession, woman. They are not the same thing.
It rattles. Out of everything he said tonight, this is the one thing that twinges my heart. Maybe it's in the manner he delivers it, the lack of conceit in his posture, an underlying insult in the tone he takes. The remark is not meant to cut, merely to express a simple truth. This time it's him who holds his gaze against mine. Another unspoken challenge, and I realize that, if this happened minutes before, I'd already have an equally searing retort at the tip of my tongue. There's none. But the anger is there, ringing at my insides, prodding at the uncertainties I've long kept. Isn't it enough? We have the long years we've been together. We have the memories. Whenever he needs me, until other people came in between us, I've always been the one there. That dedication and loyalty should mean something, shouldn't it? I've always been sure of it, and that one day he'll see it for what it is. In spite of that, in this minute, under this man's scrutiny, my own heart wavers. Now I struggle to find the words. I don't need to answer that, or what right do you have? Let's tear him a new in. What right do you have? How dare he, though? How dare he just waltz in and act like he can do as he pleases, say what he wants, or trample over other people's feelings? He doesn't know anything about me or Ashton. We've only met a few days ago, and yet he acts like we've been acquainted for years. He hasn't even met Ash. How can he see those things about him? The longer I hear his tirade, the more it sounds like he's pulling it out of his arse, out of some misguided thinking he's better than anyone in this whole bloody city. What a pompous bowhide. Normally, I'll ignore people like him. He doesn't deserve a single second of my day. But a small voice at the back of my head protests at the idea of simply leaving things here. I refuse to let this go until I've said my piece and defended myself. Those aren't merely months of harboring feelings for someone he's scoffing at. They're made of years, all of it built upon memories we've had from childhood.
What right do you have to tell me that?
None whatsoever, Daisy. But did you assume I haven't seen that before? Those longing looks? The face of someone who wants something but has yet to get it? Give me a little credit here, woman. I'm not daft, nor am I blind to your silly little feelings. It's plastered all over your face anyway. I didn't even need to try.
A pause comes after while I wait for him to add to that. He doesn't, but briefly a wistful expression spreads across his face. Surprisingly gentle, as if remembering an old memory from once upon a time, or something he has constantly seen in the mirror. It's gone in the next second. Then he turns his attention on a box beside him. For the next few minutes, he contents himself with making a mess out of the paper napkins inside, folding them into clean shapes without any clear intent before crumpling them in his hand when he loses interest, and dumping them in a small pile in front of him. I allow it to go on for a little while before I interrupt him. I'm not yet done.
And somehow that's reason enough for you.
Not at all. In fact, you didn't even need to stay here and listen to me ramble about it. Go on, walk away, the door's wide open. if you wish to be done with this mindless topic. You certainly won't hear me complaining if we just drop this now. I, for one, am very eager to be done with this stupid nonsense about your man and your...
You don't know me.
He pauses in the middle of folding another paper napkin into an airplane and glances up at me.
I'm quite sure we've already established that, Daisy. But go ahead.
And you know not a single thing about him.
That too is true. Are you going anywhere with this?
We've always been together since we were children. We've been friends for a long time. We know each other better than anyone. Compared to those 7 measly years you're so proud of, we've been with each other for almost a lifetime.
Not quite. Add a few more years, maybe? It does sound romantic when you put it that way, doesn't it? Not many people get to have someone with them that long. That's what you have going for you, isn't it? Cute years playing hide and seek, going to school together, and sharing lunch boxes? Did he also protect you from bullies? I bet my socks he did. Lucky, I don't even remember anyone from my old neighborhood. Well, except for that one Nancy who spat his drink in my face years ago. You better pray I don't find him.
So, you're just going to call it that? Despite what I told you, you're just going to call it an obsession?
Isn't it?
Of course it isn't. Didn't I already tell you?
Someone's in a little bit of denial.
Did it ever cross your mind how your man would feel about all this?
You think I've never thought of that? Listen here, you.
Or were you expecting he'll simply feel the same all because of some shared history you have? Because fun fact, Daisy, feelings change and people most definitely also change with time. Whoever that person was 10 or 20 years ago, whatever idea you have of them floating inside your head, they won't be the same now.
What are you trying to get at?
Suppose that man of yours wants something else for himself. What if he never returns your feelings, the way you so desperately want him to? What will you do?
That's not going to.
Are you going to beg? Tell him to choose you instead? Or are you going to lash out at the poor woman or man who happened to catch your man's attention?
My voice falters. His eyes focus on me, the pieces of paper he's been folding earlier now left forgotten in the space between us, while he waits for my response. However, I can't give him one. He's already aware of that, and it shows in his face when his lips form a lopsided smirk. How can I, when I've had my suspicions all along? One that rears its ugly head every time I simply see the two of them in the same room.
Oh, I hit a nerve, didn't I?
That's none of your business.
It's true, though. The poor bloke doesn't have any obligation to return your precious feelings. Nor can you force him to. That wouldn't be right.
I hate it when he makes sense.
If you're just going to mock me, we might as well sew your bloody mouth shut this instant.
Now, no need to get violent. But come on, 20 years? Gordon, Bennett, if nothing's happening past that mark, you might as well consider your options, woman. Even I wouldn't last that long.
Stop it.
One of these days, I'd like to meet the guy and share a few drinks with him, just to give the poor bloke a break from you. And probably see how dense he really is. I mean, a lovely woman like you chasing after him, and he doesn't give a shite? That's new. It'll be on me, don't worry.
I said stop it! I don't want to hear a word of it anymore!
The chair scrapes the floor as I abruptly push away from our table to stand, looming over him with the most piercing glower I can summon, anger undeterred by my own ragged breathing and clenched fists, looking down at him in the same manner he did to me throughout this chat. The only way I can keep my pride intact in front of him and the other people watching this sudden scene unfold. I hate this man. I hate the fact that he can unsettle me like this, turning everything around to what I believed in with his mere words alone. What's more awful is how easily those can replace the very ideas I hold dear to me. Not because I'm easily swayed, but because in each of them I'm aware there's a sliver of truth. Minutes pass in quiet tension. Some of the diners have already lost interest in the commotion and returned to their meals. A waiter serves our food soon enough, and Kylie makes her way back to our table, unaware. Before I can take a seat, Luke mutters something, the words spoken in the same biting tone he's assumed since earlier. Despite my opinion of the man, I stop to look at him. His eyes are on his food as he speaks, busying himself with cutting a portion of meat on his plate, but what comes out of him only rings true against my ears above the din of the coffee house.
Is that all you are? Just some lovesick woman craving for another's affection? I sincerely hope not. Kylie spoke highly of you.
He spears pieces of food, pops it in his mouth, and that's it. With that, however, he leaves another challenge in the air. Another question. One whole day with this man, I still can't figure out what his deal is. This time I don't rise up to it. Doing so means facing a different set of truths I'm not yet ready to face. Bitter truths. Those are for me to ponder on later, not in front of these people or him. His loathsome face and his sneer are the last things I'd ever want to see if that introspection ever happens. But for all of this, I can't bring myself to think of him as someone wholly despicable. The rest of our meal slips by in silence afterwards. Aside from Kylie's occasional chatter, the whole dinner goes by without another word exchanged between the two of us. Somehow, we managed to make it through the whole thing without triggering another tension-riddled conversation. A good thing, perhaps. 1, because Kylie's sitting in front of us, and 2, probably won't be able to hold a proper conversation with my mind heavy with thoughts. We depart from the coffee house just as the evening crowd starts to thin out. The same wordless silence fills our short walk back to the school, except for when Luke gestures at a nearby flower shop and enters it without waiting for Kylie and I. He emerges minutes after, carrying a bouquet of daffodils with the same softened expression back on his face. Unlike the previous ones, he tucks this one away almost as soon as he looks up at us, a moment he's not willing to share. In my confusion, he merely answers with a shrug and continues walking.
For someone important.
I accept it for what it is, if only because he doesn't owe me an explanation. It does leave more questions about him, each one as baffling as the previous ones. Those are the last words spoken this evening before we head our own ways. Up until I arrive home, I still can't understand him. Here, however, a whole different set of questions await me. And much like everything today, it comes with the littlest of things. A lone note greets me upon reaching my unit's door, its edges fluttered lightly against the faint, warm breeze passing through the small complex. My hand stops short of twisting the knob as I stare at it, though I don't make any moves to take it. Ashton's neat script lines its surface. Dropped by earlier, you weren't around. Any idea where Scaredy Cat is? I couldn't contact her. Inspector Abigail has a few questions. LPD stuff, something about her dead coworkers. Anyway, let me know how the two of you have been doing. I'll see you later. The message he left, short and straight to the point, but not without the underlying hint of friendship. He's looking for Isabella, apparently. Something about LPD's investigation of her coworker's death, but ends its formal tone by checking on me. Us. Any other day, the former part of his message will likely prod at the piercing envy I've been holding, while the latter will probably send my heart aflutter. Little things from him that I want to mean something more. Yet this time, only guilt fills me, and my eyes briefly shift toward Isabella's empty unit. Luke's words repeat inside my head as I do so.
Is that all you are? Just some lovesick woman craving for another's affection? I sincerely hope not. Kylie spoke highly of you.
Have I always been like this?
This selfish? In truth, I've intended to call Ash after that dinner if I didn't catch him here. Invite him to that party like I planned. There's time, and he's still probably awake around this hour. But my hands won't move. Perhaps it is for the better. Until I've had the time to think this through, it'll be best if I distance myself from those I've been clinging tightly to. Find a different perspective and see things for what they are. With a soft sigh, I reach for the note and crumple it under my hand. The knob twists open with much ease when I enter this time. Maybe after some introspection, it'll be easier. For tomorrow, I have that woman in the mansion to worry about. October 28th, Friday. Okay, well, the night wears on without further incident, despite the great number of thoughts swimming inside my head. Come morning, there's only a hush, a strained sort of stillness unlike the ones greeting me every morn. This one's uneasy, tight with anticipation, like a string stretched thin, merely waiting for the proper time to snap. Granted, it doesn't make my day any less pleasant, but the edge is there. And as expected, the second I step out of my flat, it comes apart, broken by the voices of two squabbling adults echoing from a floor below. The quiet was nice while it lasted. Shame.
What the hell were you thinking?
I wasn't. Ow! Could you let go?
Not a few seconds later, they both descend the stairs, with Ashton pulling Isabella by her wrist. She struggles, as she should, but his hold on her remains firm. Freeing herself means having to draw blood as she attempts to pry his hand off her with the other one, using unnecessary force to push herself away. Neither which is better than the other. One could potentially end in an accident, while the other means having to hurt him physically. She has the good sense to realize that, at least. However, it doesn't take the desperate edge in her voice when she answers Ashton's temper with her own. So, on they go, none the wiser to my presence.
You have any idea how much trouble you could get in?
That's why I'm asking you for help.
Is this what you've been doing these past 3 days? Because this doesn't make your case convincing, Isabella.
Rose died, Ash.
I know. Every single person in Luxburg knows. It's on the damn news. But that doesn't mean...
People are missing. Some of those are my friends. And BRC's just covering it all up.
You can't just barge into my office and expect me to do anything about it, right off the bat.
This isn't a children's game, Isabella. We have procedures. We have to follow protocol. There's red tape all over this case for a reason. We sure as hell don't investigate things just because some stupid letter spooked us.
Ash, you have to believe me this time. If we don't do anything right now, more people will.
It's been a whole week. This stupid letter prank is getting old real fast. I'm sick of it. It was funny the first time, not so much now.
You're the only one that can help me with this, Ash. Even Rebecca won't. All right, you two are awfully loud. What's going on here?
Both of their heads snap up almost in unison. A displeased frown is on each of their faces, but this is a necessary interruption. What can they do? People still in their units have already taken interest in the commotion, with some taking a peek behind their curtains, while others are bold enough to creak open their doors, if only slightly. If they don't keep it down, pretty soon our landlady will show up. Getting a reprimand from her is the last thing I want to happen, first thing on a Friday morning, even if this is hardly my fault.
Well, if you want to continue this, you two better do it elsewhere. You're disturbing other people.
Don't worry, we're done here.
No, we aren't. Becca, I looked it up. I called them. I visited some of them, and...
Which you shouldn't have done in the first place. Isabella, you're going to create more problems for us with what you're doing. A team has already been assigned to it. Leave it to us.
Your precious team is looking at it the wrong way. Becca, it's not just Rose. There are others.
That last bit strikes a chord, prods strongly at a memory. That vicious smile already etched deeply inside my mind. The image appears clear enough that, at the mere mention of it, I stumble on my own question.
What do you mean? The letter, Rebecca! It's not...
It's nothing. If there's really something going on because of that dumb letter, none of us would be standing here. We've all read it, haven't we? But Rebecca's alive, Zach's alive, I'm alive. So for the last time, this isn't a curse. There's a murderer on the loose, and your coworkers happen to be the victims. Give it a rest, Isabella. It's too early for this shit.
Don't you think that's too much for a coincidence?
Not so much. Most serial killers follow a pattern. I'll tell you about it some other time. And anyway, coincidence or not, the point is, civilians like you aren't supposed to get involved. You're putting yourself in danger.
Oh boy.
Will the both of you slow down and stop arguing for a minute? What's this about your coworkers, Belle?
Becca, please don't tell me now you believe this shit.
Sure, in a heartbeat I'll agree with Ashton. That's how it has always been, besides having a very good point. Really, they're the very same ones he'll make every time I ask too many questions. But the fact of the matter is, what he wants to hear from me right now is far from what I've been seeing, sensing, these past few days. It doesn't matter what Isabella and I believe on our own. Something odd has been happening around me, and that letter she picked up is at the heart of this. But however I respond to the question in their faces, only one of them will be pleased with it. I mean, well, obviously I'm going to go with my friend. I might have seen her. Ashton in particular won't be too happy to hear it. Imagining the look on his face doesn't take much effort. His entire posture shifts the moment my reluctance shows, shoulders tensing, brows furrowing, eyes gaining a sharp edge. He's already bracing himself for the disappointment. And it will be a disappointment. Not in a million years did I ever believe I'd be saying this either.
I might have seen her. The woman Belle's been telling us about.
Both of them stare at me like I've grown an extra head. For a few moments, Ashton looks as if he's about to have a fit. A pause treads at its heels after. A silence thick enough one can almost hear a pin drop.
You're kidding, right?
Do I look like I'm joking?
Really, Becca? Not funny.
Ash, I'm not lying. Why would I lie about this? It's been this way since the film fest. The past few days have been really odd since we read that letter.
Or maybe you're all just feeling under the weather.
I'm not sick. Don't you think I'd know that by now?
Becca, you're starting to sound like Scaredy Cat. Give me a break.
Why don't you? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, you two.
Isabella's voice cuts sharply through the conversation, abruptly putting an end to the brewing argument.
It's all my fault. This is all my fault. I was only hoping I could fix this before any of you. I'm sorry for dragging you all into this.
She breathes in, deep, steadying, and in that moment something falls behind her eyes as she looks away.
I'll fix this. I promise.
A quiet resolve, the same one I saw in her that night from 3 days ago, but this time it burns brighter. Even Ashton wavers at its sight when she looks him straight in the eyes, gaze unflinching. Gradually his grip on her wrist loosens.
Belle, there's nothing to fix. The problem is...
Just this once, Ash.
Her voice, though small and lacking any force, stops him. Along with it, every sound, every noise dies around us. A hush descending as if the world is waiting for her words.
You don't have to come with me, but if I don't do anything, I am going to regret it.
She lays a hand atop his, gentle, pleading, almost intimate if one does not consider the circumstances we found ourselves in.
Please.
Ashton will never tell a soul, will never admit it even to himself, but it is in that short second that his own resolve breaks. The moment the hard edge in his eyes softens and he relinquishes his hold on her, letting his hand fall limply to his side. Wordlessly, Isabella steps back and runs off, leaving only a muttered thanks and a small, lackluster smile. Only after the last of her footsteps fade away does Ashton move, breaking the silence with one of his sharp exhales before reaching up to pinch the bridge of his nose in a gesture of frustration and surrender.
Did you really have to tell her that?
What do you want to hear from me then? That everything's fine?
No, I want all of you to stop putting these ideas in her head. None of it is helping. Never mind. Don't worry about her. I'll bring her back here.
He's already poised to leave when my own instinct takes over. I reach for him, gripping his elbow with the same unyielding grip, the action prompted by voices whispering at the back of my mind. He's already made it clear he's not going to believe me, but he deserves a word of caution. Who knows where all of this will take us, how all of this will end. He shouldn't be caught off guard, beliefs notwithstanding.
Ash, I know you don't believe in those things she's saying. And you know me. I'm less inclined to believe in those things as you do. But I've seen something. There's something strange going on here. You don't have to buy it. If you don't want to listen to me, fine. But please, try to hear her out. It's bad enough that Isabella goes off like this without telling anyone. I'm just worried something might happen to her if she keeps at it. Talk to her, okay?
As if she trusts me enough for that.
Doesn't the fact that she approached you first about this, instead of me, already say a lot?
A different kind of trust. Granted implicitly and never spoken, sometimes too big, too fragile to last. He falls silent for a long moment as he turns it over in his mind. In the end, all he manages to offer is a small nod before he departs, and a promise to at least listen to her, without the teasing or the jibes. A favor for me and the least he could do for her. This is as much as I can do for him as well, until I've understood what's happening myself. Tonight, hopefully, where this all started, will provide the answers I'm looking for. Ooh, we're going to the party. Except the whole thing's off to a bad start, and all of a sudden, whatever Isabella claims dwelling is in this mansion becomes the least of my concerns. Of all the cabbies in Luxburn, I have to chance upon the superstitious one. Still not as bad as finding out your car's starter refuses to crank on when it was still working this morning, yes. But it's equally as frustrating when you're forced to walk the rest of the way. All because the driver got spooked. Isabella and him will get along so well. I do get his reasons. After all, I've had my fair taste at the bazaar lately. All of which might have been brought upon by that letter Isabella found here. But you'd think he'd at least be charitable enough to take me a little closer to the house itself, not at a distance 15 minutes away from it by foot. Good thing I'm not wearing anything too formal or constricting. Otherwise, that short walk would have likely put me in a bad mood long before I have to suffer in a room full of strangers tonight. I mean, it sounds like you're already in a bad mood, but okay. Although this soon proves to be a problem the second the driveway comes into view and I near the entrance. Severely underdressed is a total understatement to describe how I look. Cars, worth more than my own apartment and childhood home combined, line the mansion's front yard. Men and women digged out in their best also flock near the entrance. Most are eager for the festivities to start, while some are simply idling about, enjoying the warm afternoon sun before it sets. But once the woman standing at the front porch speaks, their undivided attention immediately shifts to her. Presumably Miss Wright, from the confident manner she holds herself among present company. This, despite keeping a far simpler appearance than the rest of her own guests, or not having her husband beside her. A trait worthy of utmost admiration at best. At worst, she's the envy of every woman, the subject of every gossip in Luxburn.
Welcome everyone.
And Mom said we could have been good friends. I can't even picture myself mingling with the kind of guests she has. Though I admit she does seem familiar now that I've seen her this close. Memories of sitting in a vanity not mine, being dressed in clothes too fancy for my tastes. They flit briefly in my mind until her cheerful tone rises above the buzz of her enraptured audience again.
Please, make yourselves at home.
I wish I could share her enthusiasm, really. But being surrounded by all this extravagance, for the lack of a better term, merely makes me dread how the rest of the night might go. I shouldn't have let Luke's words affect me like that. I should have just gone ahead and asked Ashton like I've planned. If you were here, then I wouldn't have to...
Be careful with Shirley, alright?
The rest of that thought dies in my mind at once. A moment of astonishment overcomes me before confusion sets in seconds later. It takes another for my body to catch up. Once it does, when I finally turn to see it for myself, it's this familiar mop of hair that catches my eyes first. And there he is, almost an arm's reach if it isn't for the guest standing between us. Ashton Frey standing in the Ermengarde mansion's driveway, with an air too lackadaisical for someone who absolutely abhors parties of any form. Or has any business here, as far as I know. The picture it forms is too bizarre for me that my mouth speaks out ahead of any coherent thought.
Ashton?
He swivels on his heel with an equally puzzled face. An odd expression flashes momentarily across it once he sees me, though he blinks it away before I can figure out what it is exactly.
Becca, what are you doing here?
I was invited.
Really? I had no idea you were friends with the host.
Well, it's my parents, actually. But that's beside the point. What are you doing here? You hate parties.
I still do. I'm just here on behalf of a friend.
That in itself is weird coming from him. It doesn't help that he isn't even making an effort to spare a glance my way when he answers. Instead, he's focused at some point in the crowd, his gaze darting between people walking past us until a small frown forms in his face.
That's rare. Do you have someone with you then?
Nope, just me. I won't be staying long.
Oh, well, if that's the case, maybe you and I can...
Chief?
Ashton, what's...
Unexpectedly, he places a hand on my shoulder, stopping me mid-sentence. He still has a distracted look on him, except this time, his eyes are sharper, as if he's found what or who he's been searching for among the throng of partygoers earlier.
Sorry, Becca. I need to... There's something I need to check for a bit. I'll talk to you later. Do you have a ride home?
No, I had to take a cab here. My car wouldn't start this afternoon. But what about...
I told you to get that old thing checked before, didn't I? You can head back with me after this. Anyway, I gotta go. See ya. Be careful, okay?
I meet the smile he hastily throws my way with a frown of my own. What does he mean by that? Before I can ask, already he's turned his back from me and is walking away, without a single explanation whatsoever. In some desperate effort, I try to catch up to him, if only to know what warranted the sudden departure and his odd warning at the end.
Hey, be careful! About what
Only for my attempts to be interrupted by a muffled ringing from my pocket. Mom's cheerful voice greets me as soon as I answer.
Yes, I'm at the party already, Mom. Yes, I'll say hi to her if I can.
The conversation itself doesn't last long. Just a simple hello, reminder to enjoy the party and to send their regards to their old student. But when the call ends and I get to look up, Ashton's already nowhere in sight. With a sigh and admittedly a little disappointment, I tuck my mobile back into my pocket and head inside. Even with familiar company, however coincidental this meeting is, this is somehow shaping up to be a terrible evening. The party hits full swing an hour later. With the host opening remarks given, still no sign of her husband, the poor woman, and the guests promptly fed, the band shifts the melody to a livelier tune. Soon, laughter and the rhythmic tapping of shoes fills the room, all in accordance to the lifting strains of music. It seems fun, I admit. Fascinating at certain moments, the flurry of dancers making the music their own, almost with no care in the world. If I weren't so indisposed, I'd have joined the crowd for a song or two. There isn't a lack of invitations anyway, plenty of them in fact, with some asking more than once. It's only my stubborn refusal that prevents me from joining them. And I can. A single nod is all it'll take, and the evening would have been far more enjoyable for me. But pride in my own silly hopes, the thought of being seen with one of them by him, curbs that, as much as I hate to admit it. Because doing so also means outright acknowledging the douche's claims. That he has to be the one to tell me that still sends my blood boiling. I would have preferred someone more agreeable, less of an arse. It's a hard truth to swallow, especially when the very person at the center of it makes denial difficult. Can't even spare me a minute of his attention or a single glance at me the whole evening. Hell, Zachary might have spoken more words to me. The big guy's busy covering the event to boot. But at least he manages to slip in a conversation or two between takes, or a small wave of his hand when he passes by. What's Ashton's excuse? He's been flitting in and out of sight the whole time. One moment he's hanging around a small group, and another he's hovering around the string band. Just a second ago he's wolfing down some deviled eggs by the buffet table, glass of wine in hand. Next thing I know, he's gone. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he doesn't want to be with any of his friends. Is it because his boss is here? What's the big deal about that? He's never brought it in before.
I swear, the next person who asks, I'm dancing the night away with. Ashton can go fuck himself.
You would catch his eye a lot better if you wore nicer clothes, don't you think?
Her voice almost makes me jump, too focused on the gobshite wandering around the ballroom and my own annoyance to notice. If she's heard any of the profanities I mumbled, or she's taken notice of my discomfiture, she makes no comment on it, merely greeting me with a smile when I turn my attention to her. Miss Hannah Wright gives off a whole different air when she's not speaking to an audience. Homely, a bit too friendly for my liking. But I guess that comes from being raised in such an environment and having to deal with pompous, snooty people. Though I suppose nothing has really changed from years ago. I remember her carrying herself in the same manner during that one and only visit. Does she remember any of it? I won't be surprised if she doesn't. It's taken me a while myself. She's probably met a lot of people like little Becky throughout the years. Might have already forgotten about me or my parents. People like her thrive on connections, after all. Nevertheless, I return her smile, awkward and stiff as it may be.
Didn't realize the housewarming was going to be this, fancy. I would have gone with a nice dress if I knew.
Oh, you're fine, dearie. It's only really the parvenue, those who climb, that come to these parties all dolled up. Quite the black-haired beauty, isn't he?
Takes me a while to realize who she's talking about, till Ashton walks back in closer proximity than any of the times he's done so far this evening. Still without a look of acknowledgement our way, though, even if Miss Wright speaks loud enough to catch the attention of anyone within earshot.
Who, Ash?
You know, you really shouldn't have turned down those offers. If I wasn't married, I'd happily go dancing with those young men. But you said a name. Ash. That's the exquisite lad you've been looking at all this time. I don't know him, and I'm the one hosting this party. That must mean you know each other. Is he your boyfriend, then? Because that would explain those rejections.
This isn't the first time someone has made that assumption. Almost every student I've had in the past did. My coworkers more often than not assume he is. Few of my neighbors also think we're an item. Not that Ashton has ever reacted to those. He's been quite indifferent about it, in fact. Still, the heat of a blush creeps up my cheeks. Deny already, despite wanting it to happen so badly myself.
What? No, that's ridiculous. He isn't my boyfriend.
Such a violent reaction. A simple no would have sufficed. Nanny here would be happy to hear it.
And I haven't been looking at him.
I do my best to summon a straight face. Before her good cheer, it easily falters.
That's right. You've been staring. Quite heatedly, in fact. Although I'm not sure if you look like you want to kiss him or kill him.
It's more the latter currently.
Just don't go murdering him on my property. I don't want to walk into a room and suddenly find a body there.
It's infectious in a way. No sooner I find myself enjoying our chat more than I've imagined myself to. Although our attention briefly wavers at one point, she remains a good companion. Even more once I've mentioned who my parents are. Her face quickly lights up and fondness graces her face, despite the meeting from several years ago being a short one. But of course, there are some things we really can't avoid talking about. After all, it's one of the few things I remember her asking me the moment she spotted little Becky in the room. Do you have a boyfriend? In retrospect, it's an odd thing to talk about as children when there are loads we could have started with.
Yes, oh, I remember you. You were the cutest little thing with glasses. And when we met, you were having boy troubles with this lad called something with an A.
I believe I still have the clothes she gave me, chosen also I could impress him. And even back then, Ashton has always been denser than a rock, and that one attempt to get him to notice backfired spectacularly. Sure, he's keen, he's a detective for heaven's sake, but feelings more often than not escape him.
What was it again? Alan, Adele, Albert, Alexander, Andrew?
Which makes this whole talk all the more embarrassing. The more names she lists off, the more my discomfort grows until my smile turns into a grimace. What will she think of me? Here she is married, to a man she most probably loves at that, while I'm still stuck in the same place, yearning for the same person.
Ashton! Ash! That man is that boy! Same one. Oh, goodness me, after all these years! I can see why, though. He's quite dashing.
You don't really need to announce it to everyone with an earshot, you know? Keep it down.
I'm so sorry, but it really is cute.
She says that, but for a short moment, a hint of pity flickers in her eyes. I take that as a chance to change the subject before anything more can be said over the matter. I haven't even figured out how I should feel about the things Luke told me. Now I'm getting dragged into a similar discussion.
So, this is a nice party, Miss Wright.
Though, to be frank, I doubt she'll be so willing to pass this up. The topic has already captured her attention.
Please, Anna's fine. We're friends of a sort, aren't we? We must be friends, seeing as I know about your little infatuation, Becky. Don't you worry, dearie. You'll have your happy ending yet.
I'm not too concerned about that, am I? That's not what I'm looking for.
Oh? And what makes you think that? Doesn't everybody want their happy ending?
The idea of happy endings sounds like they're just for fairy tales. And they are, sorta. I don't think you can just sit around, trapped in some tower and hope for the best. If you love them, you have to fight for it, right?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You've been pining over this boy for 17 years and you haven't done a damned thing about it. So you don't have much room to talk here, Rebecca.
You're not just going to sit there and hope that everything will just fix itself on its own. Like everything, you have to work at it.
Hypocrisy, that's what this is. How dare I preach about something when it's exactly what I've been doing? And then, I go and act as if I'm entitled to any of it. That by virtue of us growing up together, he must return whatever I feel for him, that he's not allowed to look at another, because I'm the one who stayed by his side the longest. When in the first place, Ashton has always been his own person. This is something I cannot force on him. I can only hold on to these, take care of it, until the time comes I can confess it to him. Great if he reciprocates, but if he can't, if he won't, selfish. I've been too selfish. How laughable that Luke's words still strike true up until now.
But what do I know?
I'm sure the daughter of the two greatest professors I've ever known is smart enough to know what she's talking about.
At one point, maybe I would have easily agreed to that. However, the past week has also seen changes in the way I view things. As nice as these things sound, it turns out whatever I previously knew may not even be true for other people, or for myself. It is sobering and almost funny how things I might have said with much certainty before now have doubts muddying each of them. But there will be time to mull about these later, because when a hush suddenly descends in the room, a whole different issue rears. Especially when Luke, fucking Luke, strides into the now quiet ballroom, fashionably late, and oozing with the same pompous mien he always carries around with him.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Enjoying the party? I hope I'm not too late in welcoming you all to the right mansion.
Before long, Hana leaves my side to join him, and it doesn't take a genius to piece it all together.
Welcome, one and all, to our humble abode. Tonight, if you have yet to find yourself in your roles, you are our ladies and lords of the court of your king and queen. If you would excuse my presumptuousness. So, enjoy the feast that has been laid out for your senses, as we only allowed the best to be served. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone.
His attitude, the manner he carries himself around people, and some familiarity with that part of the city, of fucking course. I should have known. Although I'm partly at fault here. Tabloids and the gossip columns have never been really my thing. I should also have expected whatever Luke fucking Wright is, some sort of drama will surely follow. He seems the kind of person who revels in it, figures it'll find him on its own, even when he's not asking for it. It happens amidst a round of applause and hoots, that people lagging behind the crowd they've gathered does not catch on, until the cheers turn into several scandalized gasps.
I am pregnant with your little bastard. You promised me you'll take responsibility. God damn it, Luke. I finally got you to talk to me after months of silence, and you do this to me. What do you mean you're pregnant with? Luke, is this true?
Lies and slander, woman! Security! Johannes, take her out of here before she makes an even bigger fool of herself!
No, you do not do this to me. I was so ready to leave my stupid oaf of a husband. I told you to leave that damn wife of yours. Look at her. Does she look like she wants a baby? Does she look like she could take care of a baby?
The commotion doesn't go further, despite the drunk woman appearing like she has plenty more venom to spill. In a little while, security shows up, escorting her out. Apparently, she's the chief inspector's wife, too. As if this whole thing can't get any more fucked up than it already is. What a mess. But the damage has been done, and beyond the repercussions this will bring, I'm more worried about Hana. Maybe Luke, too, in part. I've seen the man that hides behind his self-importance, and it is someone who cares for the person who stands beside him. No matter how questionable that is now. After all, no anger is worse than that of a scorned woman. And Hana, well, as refined and well-mannered as she is in front of their guests, I'm not sure she'll be all too willing to tolerate this. Her party, her home, her husband, and that woman has just dared to walk over it. Yet when I glance at her, there's only defeat, a weary slump on her shoulders, and a certain depth to her breathing. Like the fight has already been drained out of her long ago. I don't know since when this has been going on. I don't know either of them well to judge for myself. I'm simply an outsider who happens to have some kind of connection with both of them. But the air of a person who wishes for respite, it's all too easy to see it in her, as she quietly watches the commotion carry on around her. In a moment, before I can think it through, I'm pulling her to the side and waving Zachary over to us.
Becca, this is a real oh, hey, Miss Wright.
Hello, Zachary. I told you to call me Hana. Did I not?
Yeah, you did.
Admittedly, this air of familiarity between them catches me off guard. I won't put it past Hannah. Her standing in society compels her to keep appearances, the be nice to everyone sort of thing. While Zachary's growing client base sometimes calls for rubbing elbows with the rich and famous. Although, from the way it appears, this one seems to go beyond maintaining a facade or work. I wonder how this friendship came to be. I'd ask, but we're starting to attract some curious eyes. Most of them are probably searching for more gossip, something to add fuel to the fire. Thankfully, there's no need to explain to Zachary. He's aware of the situation all too well.
So, this is what you called me for? We gonna get Hana out of here?
That'd be great.
Soon he's leading the three of us out of the ballroom. Anyone who dares speak or approach on our way out, I shut down with a sharp glare. Yeah. In a few steps, we're out, away from the commotion and the suffocating tension. I don't stay long with them, though. Even if I want to, Ashton's still somewhere in that crowd. I've got to go back from him at least. No matter how much the idea of that alone sends an unpleasant twinge in my stomach.
Hey, I gotta go back in there. Completely forgot my bag like an airhead, and I'll see if I can tag Ash on the way out. You'll be fine here, right, Hannah?
Not to worry, dearie. I'll just be right here.
Zach will be with you if you need anything.
Besides, it seems Zachary can handle this without another person helping out. In fact, for some reason, I've got the strange impression I might be intruding on something if I elect to remain. Better to entrust this with someone she's comfortable with. And though it might be a little inappropriate considering what has transpired, a smile worms its way to my lips as I leave. Good on them, I suppose? Chatters exploded throughout the whole ballroom once I return. Worried murmurs, clicking of tongues, and inappropriate gossip filtered through the thick tension in the room. Most of them haven't even left the premises, and they're already talking about it. Tomorrow it'll be on the news for sure, in every local broadsheet and tabloid in Luxburn. No wonder Luke's knee-deep into damage control. With the scandalous woman gone, he's turned his attention on the media covering the event. Though so far, he isn't faring well in the cleanup department.
Now, people, we all know the drill. I'm sure you're all itching to get a start on those articles.
Good thing Zachary isn't here. Can't imagine a man of his temperament dealing with someone like him.
But if I read one word, see one picture about this come morning, even a single shot of the bloody wine glass the harlot held, you will all lose more than your jobs.
Luke's diatribe goes on for another few minutes, after which he excuses himself out of the area. There's a brief lull, a reluctant pause before the place comes to stir again, but shortly the buzz returns. Dancers have once again taken to the floor, and their guests' excited talk begins anew. But I couldn't care less about any of this now. Simply standing in the middle of it already gives me a headache. When the shock has faded, I just feel bone-tired. I've accomplished nothing of what I've come here for, and apparently Ashton's disappeared sometime during the commotion. I'm not sure what pisses me off more. That he ignored me the whole evening and might have just left without saying anything, or knowing he obviously has some other motive for being here. Can't he at least trust his own friends for that?
You didn't have to hide it from me.
It's the last straw. No longer in the mood, I grab my bag and head out, more than ready to end the disastrous night as early as possible. As it turns out, the night isn't done with me yet, because no sooner has the porter closed the door behind me, I found myself standing alone in the foyer with one Luke Wright. No sign of Hana or Zachary, just him and the agitated clicks his shoes make while he treads around the empty room. Away from the media's prying eyes and their guests' judging stares, it's easy to glean how much the scandal has him shaken. Not to the point where he has utterly lost his composure, he appears to have mastered himself enough not to, but an ample opening is there for a nervous edge to show on the lines of his shoulders.
What do you know?
The man is not as tough as he makes himself out to be. Sure, I've seen this before, briefly in that 1 second in the hallway at school. It's a strange matter, however, to witness this out in the open. Behind closed doors, this is the real Luke Wright. Though maybe that's because he hasn't noticed my presence yet, busy as he is with his thinking. If he's aware, I doubt he'll be acting like this. His pride is one thing he will always wear with him. Even now, when I place a gentle hand on his shoulders and he whirls around to face me, there's a second-long moment of anger flashing across his features, before it dissolves into confusion. He tucks it away as quickly as he can, but it does nothing to change the impression I built on the man in my head.
Daisy, must you be everywhere?
We've only met 3 times, Luke. Quit the dramatics. Besides, shouldn't you be aware of who gets invited to your party?
If I was, there wouldn't be any of that scene tonight. That munter wouldn't even get an inch within this property. I'd bear off Luxport if I could.
He probably pawns everything off to their servants and Hana. Pompous, elitist douche.
Did you just come out here to lecture me about it? Because, Daisy, I can already feel one coming tomorrow. I don't need to hear one from you tonight.
You are a very unpleasant man.
So I've been told. Will that be all? If If so, I suggest you go back and join every bloody goss in that room.
Not everything. As unpleasant and frustrating talking with this man is, he deserves the benefit of the doubt at least. No, he doesn't. The questions and criticisms aren't lacking, of course. Right this instant, there's only one that comes to mind. Is it true, or you should be with your wife? I mean, I feel like if I ask him if it's true, then obviously he's gonna say no. But, like, I don't really, but if I say you should be with your wife, I mean, that's not really my business to say. I'm just gonna say you should be with your
You
wife.
know, brooding over here isn't going to fix this mess.
Again with the lecture.
Will you stop
She is a
calling
teacher.
it that?
Very well, what should we call this then? A heart-to-heart? Please don't, I might puke. And just so you know, I don't want to talk about feelings. Ever.
This isn't one, all right? It's just a friendly concern. Bloody hell, can't you just take it for what it is?
He pauses at that. Suddenly, he doesn't know what to do with his hands, and in the end, he simply stuffs them back into his pocket and sulks. There probably aren't many people who tell him that. He's a difficult man to get along with, after all. I honestly won't give him a second of my time if I didn't see a different side to him. Dealing with him requires more than patience. When the awkwardness passes, mostly coming from him, he merely glances away. But the tightness in his shoulders has eased, and when he speaks again, despite his rather rude choice of words, none has any venom in it.
Friendly concern, right. While we're at it, I should mention that Hana used to call that Viper friend. Now I think she might want to strangle the Munta if she sees her again. After she's done with me, of course.
I doubt she's going to do anything like that.
What do you even know about this?
Oh, I know enough. You may look like a sleazy douche, and you still are, by the way.
It's almost comical how fast his face shifts from mild disdain to offended, but I don't let it distract me. These things need to be said, and he needs to hear them, even though they're coming from some meddling stranger.
But you have your few good moments. I might even say that you're a decent person, if I'm in the mood. Now go. If you really love her, you've got to try and fix this yourself.
Maybe tomorrow.
Luke.
Daisy, did you see her earlier? Was that the face of a wife who wants to have a chat with her cheating husband?
So he admits it.
Well, at least you admitted you did something wrong. Good for you. How about a star? Would you like a star to go with that good deed?
Don't get used to it. Do you realize how awkward this is?
Oh, I do.
She's loving it. Before I've even thought about what to say, I've known there can only be two ways this can go. All things considered, it isn't as bad as I've assumed. However, there are still some things my brand of encouragement can't fix. His marital problems, first and foremost. His attitude follows right after. Concerns aside, I can't help with those. Those are only things that he can fix, and it's definitely not by standing around here bantering.
Don't worry, I was just about to leave. Feel free to continue with your brooding once I'm gone. I'm not going to tell anyone. Cross my heart.
You think this is funny, Daisy?
Very much so. Laughter is the only response I give him. With a slight wave of my hand, I end it right there and walk away. Although I can't resist the urge to glance back before I leave, if only to have one last look at the man he really is. But the instant I turn my gaze on him, I see it. Looming, hovering over his shoulders, drawn to him like a moth to a flame, like the first time I've stepped inside this place in search of Isabella. He was there too, wasn't he? That man, along with his wife and another person, Miss McCullough. And that shadow. No, a woman now. Her, no longer a dark blur. Terror rushes through every vein in my body, a crippling sensation gripping every part of me, while she stares at me with a glare filled with nothing but hate and venom. It's like staring at the eyes of a woman I've unknowingly robbed of something precious. I try to say something. A warning. Before I can gather my wits and voice it out, someone shuts the door behind me, as if to keep outsiders away from the secrets this mansion possesses. The brush of fresh air against my cheeks does little to dampen the chill in my bones. By now the sensation, the fear and disquiet, leaves whenever I see her, is familiar enough for me. Already has made a home in my nerves. I don't even notice my trembling hands until I cross my arms across my chest. The cold from the tips of my fingers seeps through the thick material of my shirt. Neither of it helps bring together some semblance of coherent thought in my head. But I know I should.
Someone has to tell that douche.
I start walking back before fear can cripple me again. It's not wise. Returning, that is, especially after what happened. But Hana's still an old friend in Luke. Luke doesn't deserve whatever misfortune that letter might bring. I can't just leave those two in there. Isabella's right. She's real, and there's something she wants from everyone who has read that.
Becca, where'd you go off to?
My mistake. The second his voice cuts through the crisp night air, is that I've allowed my annoyance to get the better of me. Fuming, purpose forgotten, I whirl around and march towards him. One accusation after another pile up at the tip of my tongue, ready to be hurled at any moment. There's no hesitation holding me back when I fling it at him. That straight face he keeps as I do so doesn't help temper my anger either. It only makes me want to slap more sense into him.
Shouldn't I be the one asking you that?
Becca, I've been waiting here the whole time since that mess in the hall. I told you I hate parties like...
And before that, where have you been the entire evening?
Right then and there, I might have forgiven him if he'd shown some ounce of remorse for leaving me like that. Maybe he could have looked away, given me a sign that my assumptions might be right. He doesn't even need to put them into words. A single gesture of confirmation is all I need. Rather, what I get is the same impassive look. He does that whenever he can't disclose anything. He does that whenever he's lying. In the face of it, amidst the thick tension, a frustrated huff is the only thing I can summon.
Be that way. Fine. Suit yourself.
No more words. After everything I've seen and heard tonight, I'm already too exhausted for those. So without speaking any further, I simply walk past him and stomp over his car. Although, before I can pull open the door, he calls out, one hand outstretched, a gentle weight on my shoulders.
Wait, Becca.
He pauses, his brows furrowing and lips curving into a slight frown. I can almost see the gears turning in his head while he tries to piece together everything he wants to say. Before, perhaps, I might have waited patiently for those. He's not a man fond of using words to express himself. More often than not, any gesture of honesty will only come out blunt and coarse when forced. But today, for one reason or another, I simply can't summon that forbearance.
Ashton, if you're just going to waste my time again...
Becca, listen. I don't know how else...
That much is obvious. Why don't you just take the whole bloody night? Go on. I can wait until next year. Better yet, why don't you just keep it all to yourself like you always do? It's not like...
Rebecca, will you hear me out first?
See, she's, not even letting him talk, okay, first of all. The silence I can offer him, but whether I'll believe what he's about to say is still up for debate. A very long debate.
I honestly don't know how else to put this. I'm aware your parents have some kind of history with Hana Wright, and somehow you're friends with her. But you should stay away from these people for now. Especially the husband.
Who? Luke?
His expression deepens into a scowl at my mention of the name. Whatever opinion he has, he doesn't immediately voice. Still, something about it has greatly displeased him, evident in the stiff note his tone assumes.
Yeah, he's bad news.
It's my turn to frown this time. What does he mean by that? What does he have to do with this, or care to explain your reasons? Care to explain your reasons?
Explain your reasons?
I'm not meant for it to sound as harsh as it does, but anger and frustration have never been a good match in me, particularly on nights like this. It's not surprising when Ashton jerks back, as if I've struck him. For a fleeting moment, something akin to hurt darts across his features, his eyes narrowing and hands closing in tightly into a fist at his sides. Then swiftly he glances away and shifts his focus on the line of the trees nearby, like an answer can be gleaned from the dark expanse.
I'm really sorry, Becca.
What is it for? For the party? The vague answers he continues to give. Does it include all those times before this, the year's worth of it? I don't doubt its sincerity. However, at the moment, the forgiveness he's asking isn't something I'm all too willing to hand, furious as I am. It's frankly a wonder how I can keep myself from raising my voice at him.
We'll talk about this tomorrow.
Okay, that's really not fair. He's working for the police. There's some things he probably legally is not allowed to disclose, even to his lifelong, childhood best friend. And I think Becca's being kind of a dick right now. But whatever.
You better have a proper answer for me by then.
You're not entitled to information, lady. There's a brief hesitation before I step away, a short moment of wanting to say more, of waiting if he has anything to add. He's only silent, eyes still trained at a distance. It's the last glimpse I see of him before I climb inside his car. The door slams closed with the same force as the anger I'm holding. Its sound merely vanishes into the night unnoticed. He follows soon after. Shortly we're on our way back to the city. Yet, even with the city's bright lights welcoming us, the dense, somber air from the mansion still lingers. The moon is almost at its highest by the time we reach Salem Well. Even after our respective heads have cooled off, the atmosphere within the car remains rife with unspoken tension. This isn't a problem so easily fixed with a few handshakes. Quite frankly, I don't know what will. Ashton himself has no idea what to do when he alights and dawdles awkwardly in the middle of the car park, unsure. It almost seems like he's having an internal debate, whether he should say goodbye or mutter another apology. I could have driven him away purely out of spite the second I gotten off. Still, old habits die hard. It's late, and Ashton's flat is on the other side of the city. Irritation might still rear its head every time I look at him right now, but I'm not too cruel to put him up on another long drive. Especially when it still appears as if he hasn't gotten any rest.
You can borrow the couch.
I throw the keys to my flat his way before a protest forms on his lips. Although he catches it with ease, he eyes it with a worried expression and shoots a puzzled glance my way.
You haven't been forgiven. We're still going to have that talk, believe me. But I'm not about to send you out on another drive looking like that. It's late. Go get some rest.
We're setting aside a lot of loose ends like this, but he appears to have accepted that reason, at least in the meantime. He does give me another questioning glance when I shove past him, pulling my mobile in the process.
Where are you going? I thought...
You go ahead upstairs. I need to contact Professor Andrew.
Andrew? Why would you... Oh, no. Please. Is this that thing Isabella said this morning? Again? I already gave her my word, Becca. I'll look into this BRC crap. No need to drag the old guy into it.
Of course he's still skeptical. Makes one wonder if he's even seen anything at all. Figures his curse will stay away from the scoffer. But this is another loose end tonight that I can't just leave alone, Ashton's belief notwithstanding. It just so happens that it's one I can delve into using means other than taking a look at the mansion itself.
Ashton, do you really think I still give a shite after that stunt you pulled tonight?
No, but this is...
I spent so many years with him to know that this is about to turn into another argument. Before he can finish it, I cut him off with a firm raise in my hand.
Look, I don't care. There are weird things happening around here. And yes, it's Isabella's brand of weird. Ghostly voices, strange sounds, and a bloody woman sitting at the back of my car. You don't have to believe me. And I no longer have the patience to convince you, so just leave me be, Ashton.
He doesn't push it, growing quiet instead, although I know he has a whole case of it prepared inside his head. But there's a reluctant shift in his movement when he steps away from our conversation. Short of climbing the stairs, he stops, turns to face me with an expression almost too conflicted.
Are you really sure?
What?
That there was something? That you've been, seeing things?
Yes, I'm very, very certain. Now go, and you better not break anything in there. The last time I let you stay over, it was that statuette Belle gave me. You haven't even replaced that one.
The last of my reprimand goes both unheard and unanswered as he disappears behind the stairs. Things aren't as strange. He might have a quip or two about that, followed by light banter. Instead, for a long moment, I am left staring after him. There's something in the way he asked it that nags. Coupled with his expression, this whole exchange feels just unsettling. Well, that doesn't fade even as I gather my thoughts and shift my focus on another, even as I dial Professor Andrew's number. That is when it clicks. During the long wait for the professor, one stray thought emerges from the unease. Ashton is not intended for his question to be a jibe. It's concern. For what, though? For my well-being? The letter's curse? The woman I mentioned? The answers for those will have to wait, however. Finally, the call connects and Professor Andrew's voice echoes from the receiver.
Professor Andrew?
Rebecca? It's late. What can I do for you?
I know, I'm sorry, but this is a bit urgent.
After all, this is a more pressing matter. Our lives might be at stake and we're still in the dark.
Actually, I was wondering if I could ask you to do me a favor.
Okay, well, this is turning out to be quite a long episode, and I think this is probably a really good spot to pause it here. So I will pick up this chapter in the next episode, and meanwhile, it's getting pretty interesting so far. I think a lot of pieces are starting to come together. So I really hope that you enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you have a wonderful day.